Hey folks, how's it going? Let's talk gardens and seeds for a minute. I just got in some of my seeds this week that I've ordered. I've got quite a few varieties on hand, but these are some new varieties that I ordered in, and I wanted to go over the varieties that I've gotten in so far and why I chose some of these. But first, I just want to mention how important it is for us to have as much diversity in our gardens as possible, because when we monocrop, or when we have large amounts of just nothing but uh one plant, a lot like most farms these days, they'll plant dozens of acres of, or even hundreds of acres of all the same thing, all corn, all soybean, all whatever. And one of the problems that arises from monoculture is uh it depletes the soil of whatever nutrients that particular variety of plant uses. It also invites in disease and pests, because the pests that prey on these plants, it's real easy for them to spot these plants when there's 100 acres of the same thing. I mean, it's just endless acres of the same plant. It makes it really easy for the insects and pests that prey on these plants to locate them, hone in on them, and it just devastates them. But again, also, it's not just the pests; disease spreads rapidly through large mono monocrops. So one way we can fight that is by growing as many varieties of plants as we can close together, even intermixing them if possible, provided it doesn't cause issues with cross pollination. And all of these intermixed plants, it helps confuse the insects that prey on them. But also, some plants bring in beneficial insects that help prey on the uh, harmful pests. You also have certain plants that they do really well when they're planted close together, because one plant will give off a certain chemical or nutrient or component or whatever into the soil that the other plant needs, and vice versa. And also, some plants, like certain, for example, wildflowers. If you plant wildflowers through your garden, it helps bring in pollinators and beneficial insects that pollinate your garden, gives you a better pollination rate, but it also brings in these pests, or brings in these beneficial insects that prey on the harmful pests. So there's a lot of benefits to growing a diverse variety in your gardens. Now, the exception to that is when you have things like, and I'm going to use this for an example, because I'm going to be talking about that in a little bit. Corn. Corn is a wind pollinated plant, and it can cross pollinate up to, I think, a mile or two away. It's that sensitive, so it could potentially cross pollinate with another variety of corn a mile away. So if you plan on growing more than one type of corn, you might be able to get two varieties in one season. But what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to look at the the dates, the time frame that it takes for it to produce and harvest, and make sure that you stagger the planting enough so that they don't both come into silk, for example, at the same time. You don't want one getting ready to be pollinated at the exact same time the other one is getting ready to be pollinated, because then you'll end up with cross pollination. So what you want is, you want to plant one, and you want to have it well on its way to reaching that stage before you even start to plant the other one, so that the first crop will pollinate, and it'll pass that stage before the second crop even gets there. That's how you can grow more than one crop like corn in the same year. Now, granted, some varieties of corn and even some varieties of bean and other vegetables take as much as 3 to 3.5 months to harvest. The problem with that is if you're not in an area where you have a really long growing season, you're constrained by that so that you can only grow that one crop. And if you want to do different varieties, you'll have to alternate every other year. If you're fortunate enough to live in a place like I do, like Georgia or Florida or Alabama or what have you, then you have a much longer growing season and you have a much greater chance of growing one variety of corn, for example, again, and then being able to come in before that corn is completely done and start another batch. And hopefully, if you choose the right varieties, you can get a second crop from a different variety that same season. Uh, now, again, it all depends on the plant, the variety of the plant, its germination rate and harvest time, and things like that. Beans, for example, don't generally cross pollinate, um, at least for the most part. The variety of beans that I'm used to growing, they self pollinate. They don't cross pollinate. So I can grow multiple varieties in one season. And beans are also have the advantage of you can plant multiple successive plantings constantly so that as the each one of your plantings matures and starts to die back, the next one is already coming in full. So you can get essentially a tidal wave of bean production before the season is over. And in my experience with the beans that I've grown, uh, it doesn't take much to get so much production that you get overwhelmed. I'm gonna get on into these seeds that I bought though. We're already at 7.5 minutes. I don't want this to be a any longer than absolutely necessary, but I want to cover everything. So again, in an effort to get variety and get some seeds from varieties that I don't have, I placed an order with 2 or 3 different places. One was Southern Exposure Seed Exchange. Another was Baker Creek Heirloom Seeds, and then I had seeds that I bought, a couple of packs of seeds I bought from individuals. The first thing I want to cover is beans. Now, I typically grow rattlesnake pole beans. They always do well for me in my area. In fact, I grew some one year, and it just amazed me how well they grew in that particular area. Because at the end of the season, when I was tearing the vines down, the base of one stalk was about that big around. It was bigger than a nickel. I mean, it was a really, really thick base on that vine. So that one particular vine did really well. So rattlesnake pole beans have always done really well for me. So I always want to try to grow a few of those, if nothing else, to get a few to eat. Yes, but I also want to grow enough to be able to harvest some seed from it, and hopefully at some point be able to start selling some seed that I'm growing. But rattlesnake pole beans, for example, it takes 56 days to reach production. Uh, they produce really heavy and hot, humid areas, so they work really good in the Mid-Atlantic and South where sandy soil prevails. Right, I've got heavy clay soil here, but they still do really well here. Uh, and my father can attest to this. A couple of years ago, I planted some, and they produced so heavy. They grew so heavy. I had T posts at the end of my runs, and I had cable run between the two T posts, and I put my poles up against that cable, and that's what the beans climbed. The beans grew so thick and so heavy and produced so much they actually managed to pull the T-posts out of the ground. That's something I've never seen it do before. And those posts were in the ground a good 1.5 feet, 2 feet. So it wasn't like they were barely in the ground. They were about 2 feet in the ground, and it still managed to pull the T-post, the steel T-post, out of the ground. So that gives you an idea of how heavy and fast they grow, at least in my area. So rattlesnake pole beans are always a favorite. Uh, two others that I bought though was, and this one came from Baker Creek. I found this because it's advertised as a 1,500-year-old cave bean. This is the pack that it came in. I ordered a couple of packs. According to the listing on Baker Creek, it's a pole bean, produces in 95 to 110 days, so it's got a longer production rate than the rattlesnake pole beans. According to the listing they had, according to their website, the amazing native bean was reputedly found in a cave in New Mexico in a clay pot sealed with pitch. When carbon dated, the test showed it to be around 1,500 years old. Somebody actually managed to get them to sprout, supposedly. So they grew them, harvested seed, and that's where these come from. Interesting looking little beans. But these are the 1,500-year-old cave beans. I've only found these on a couple of sites, but I wanted some to add to my variety. Long vines climb to 10 foot, so they do get really, really long, really tall. Produce tasty pods. Beans are large and kidney-shaped, white with maroon mottling. It's considered a very rare bean. And again, it's not frost hardy, but again, it just gives me more variety. I can alternate and gives me more security when I store these seeds. I have more chances of producing something if I have a large variety of seed. Also from Baker Creek, I ordered some huckleberry seed. I'm not even going to try to pronounce the variety because I know I'll butcher it. I'll let you guys see what variety that is. Congratulations to anybody that can pronounce that properly. And then they sent me a free gift, a free packet of seed, something called a tomato spoon, which I've never seen before. It'll be interesting to check that out. I'll probably grow that as well. That's all I got from Baker Creek. So there was one other type of bean I wanted to grow as far as pole beans. And one of the reasons was it's typically it's a traditional Cherokee bean, an heirloom that was typically growing up corn stalks. That's Cherokee cornfield snap pole beans. So I did order that, and again, primarily because it says it yields extremely well, especially when grown up corn stalks. So apparently, there's some sort of symbiosis there that really benefits the bean, and I'm sure the bean in some way benefits the corn as well. But it has a matures in 58 days, yields well, especially when grown up corn stalks. The story goes that the different color varieties should not be separated out, or else they will barely flower. And then it works really well as either a snap bean or a shell bean, according to what I've been reading. Now the rattlesnake pole beans, they work really well as a green snap bean, as a shell bean, and they dry really well also for dry bean storage and for seed storage. Okay, the next thing that I bought, the next type of bean, and it's the only other type of bean I bought right now, was I bought some Ford Hook lima beans. Nothing really special about these. I mean, these are typically available at almost any garden center, but but they are heat and drought tolerant. They're drought resistant. So for me, being in the South, that was one of the things that really appealed to me. And my family loves lima beans, so that was the reasoning for buying that particular bean. Next up, we get into okra, which is not something that I actually ordered. What I do is, and I've mentioned this before, I grow a variety of Clemson spineless that my grandmother has grown for as long as I can remember. Uh, she ordered seeds, she planted it, and every time she planted it, she would harvest the seed. So she'd never order it again. She would just replant the seed from the previous year. So for as long as I can remember, my grandmother did that, and then my dad got some, and I got some. So it's kind of become like our family's heirloom seed. Um, it's not unique to our family, but this particular seed strain has been handed. You know, it's been in our family for a while now, for several years, and it's just something that I like to grow. I love okra, and it's something I like to grow because it's been handed down through the family, and I want to continue that tradition. Next up, and this is why I mentioned what I did before, is I ordered a large variety of different corns. Okay, the reason for that, I'm going to plant a couple of varieties of sweet corn. I might not plant both this year. I might alternate this year and do a different one next year. Those are going to be golden bantam, early golden bantam sweet corn, and probably Stovall's uh, evergreen corn, or either that or a trucker's favorite yellow corn. I prefer a yellow corn over a white corn for roasting, uh, just because of the flavor. I mean, it's just my personal preference. But I ordered a variety of dent corn, and dent corn is typically good for roasting, but it's also really good for drying and uh, grinding into cornmeal. And again, because I wanted to get a variety of different corn types to plant, some of them because they were unique, had unique characteristics, and I wanted to try them out because some of these are, a couple of these at least are almost 100 years old, and I mean they date back to that amount of that time. They date back to the early 1800s, and some I think there's even one the 1700s. Uh, it just gives good variety. It's unique to me, which is interesting. And while they don't produce as much as modern varieties that have been hybridized or, God forbid, GMO type corns, which I really don't want to have anything to do with GMO corns. I lost my train of thought. It just gives good variety. They're unique, and I just want to have different types on hand. So one of the first ones I picked up was it's called Bloody Butcher because the seeds are red, the kernels are red, and I'm going to read what it says. It has it matures in 120 days. Stalks grow 10 to 12 feet tall, producing two ears per stalk. Kernels are blood red with darker red stripes and an occasional white or blue kernel. It's great for flour, cereal, or roasting ears. So I bought that. The next one was, let me find it here. Uh, Kentucky Rainbow Dent Corn. Uh, Matures in 110 days. It's kind of like the Indian corn you would see in the store. It's got a rainbow color to it. Uh, it's actually kind of derived from the Bloody Butcher. It's a it's in the same family, so to speak. Uh, but it's a it's been crossbred and bred down through the years so that it it produces a little different. It says beautiful multicolored huge ears up to 14-inch long ears on sturdy 12 to 18-foot stalks, 1 to 2 ears per stalk, really tight rows, 10 to 14 rows per ear, some all red and all blue ears, along with an array of purple, white, and striped orange kernels. This variety's ancestors include Bloody Butcher and many other corns crossed over for the decades to create an immensely productive and drought tolerant, hardy dent corn, good for sweet roasting ears, and gorgeous, delicious cornmeal. All right, so the next one, hickory cane dent corn. And these, I want to experiment with a lot of these, so that's why I bought so many. Matures in 85 to 110 days. This this variety dates pre 1875. Heirloom dent corn originally selected by Native Americans in North Florida and South Georgia, and that's one of the reasons I picked it because I'm trying to pick things that grow really, really well in the area that I live in. It came to be prized across the mountain south for roasting ears, creamed corn, grits, and hominy, and particularly for white cornmeal, as well as fodder for animals. Plants grow up to 15 foot tall. I mean, that's pretty tall. That is pretty tall. 1 to 2 ears per stalk. Tight ears keep out earworms. Large ears stay in the green milk roasting stage longer than most heirlooms. All right. The next one, and I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this right. I think I am. It's Jellicorse Twin. It's also a dent corn. White in color, matures in 120 days. It's pre 1920 variety. Tennessee variety similar to Neil's Paymaster. I'm not familiar with that variety, but with a white cob, extremely heat tolerant, and has set seed even during 107-degree temperatures. That's why I bought this one. Because if we are going through climate change, and I believe to some degree we are because the earth naturally goes through those changes. I'm not going to debate uh, any impact man has had on that right now because I'm not interested in talking about that. But if we do have periods of severe drought and hot temperatures, this is a corn that would do really well. And it would be good. It would be really good to have this variety on hand because it's likely to do better than most others. All right. Let's see. The next one is a Tennessee Red Cob. Also a dent corn. It's a white in color corn, matures in 120 days, pre 1900. So again, it's well before GMO, which is one of the things that I love about these things. High yielding, up to 150 bushels per acre here in Virginia. 10 to 13 foot sturdy stalks are often used to support pole beans. 6 to 9 inch ears, 12 to 18 rows per ear, 1 to 2 ears per stalk. Mr. Jarrell, who supplied the original seed stock for this for Southern Exposure, um, reported that in 1995, this variety produced a good crop on only 2 inches of rain from mid-June until the 1st of September. It was one of the driest years on record in his growing area in Virginia and was the only variety that produced. Makes great cornbread and polenta as well as attractive corncob pipes. Again, that is why I'm going for some of these older varieties that are not so common because of characteristics like this. 2 inches of rain from mid June to the 1st of September. That is not much rain in a really long dry spell. And if we have droughts, these might produce where the more common modern day varieties don't. All right. I've got four more varieties, or well, five more varieties of seed that I want to talk about. From Southern Exposure, I've got three types of melon seeds here. One is a muskmelon. You don't see these in stores, which is one of the reasons why I ordered it. I want, if possible, I want stuff that you can't find in grocery stores, uh, just for variety. This is an Old Tennessee muskmelon. Um, what does it say about this one? It's salmon colored flesh, matures in 95 days, large oval shaped fruits, 12 to 16 inches long, average 12 pounds. That's a big muskmelon. Must be harvested at peak ripeness before full slip and not a good keeper, which is a negative, but flavor can be outstanding. Some gardeners say there's no better melon if you harvest at the right time. One gardener reports that the melons are so fragrant he can find them in the dark. Good downy mildew resistance. Uh, the next melon I bought was a blacktail mountain watermelon. Again, not a typical watermelon you would find in a grocery store. Matures in 73 days, small fruited, earliest of all watermelons. Uh, an excellent small, fast maturing, highly productive watermelon that can be successfully grown in cool, short season areas or southern hot, humid areas. The earliest of 114 varieties that Glen Drowns grew in 1994. Round 9-inch fruits have a dark green rind with small brown seeds. Orange red flesh has sweet, rich flavor. When harvested just under ripe, melons will ripen in storage and keep up to 2 months long. That is a big plus for any kind of fruits, vegetables, what have you, in an off grid situation. If you want something that'll store a long time, buy seeds from plants that have long storage potential. So to me, that was a big factor in buying that one. Not to mention the early production and the small size. All right, the next watermelon I bought was called a Nancy watermelon. This one I bought because it predates 1885. It matures in 90 days, predates 1885 in Georgia. Again, my area. Thinner rind made it hard to ship, so this was the variety that commercial watermelon growers would save for their own families. 14-inch by 16-inch melons average 25 pounds. That's a hefty little melon there. Very sweet pink red flesh, white seeds, above average disease resistance, excellent drought resistance. All right. Um, I had one on here. I don't know that I actually wrote it down. Yeah, there it is. This is a different type of vegetable. This is a squash, and I wanted something different than the typical butternut or acorn squash or yellow crookneck or yellow straight neck. What I ordered was North Georgia Candy Roaster squash. Um, matures in 100 days. Early 1900s Appalachian Thanksgiving feasts included candy roaster pie instead of pumpkin pie. Rare heirloom variety, banana shaped fruits are up to 18 inches long and 6 inches wide, with pink with blue tips. Smooth, delicious orange flesh. Um, Oregon's Eat Winter Squash Project found North Georgia Candy Roaster to be one of the tastiest, most productive, and best storing winter squashes. So again, I'm looking at varieties that you can't find that easily in your grocery store or in your typical hardware store like Lowe's or Home Depot or whatever. Also targeting early varieties that haven't been contaminated with GMO uh, manipulation. Um, and I know crossbreeding plants technically is a form of genetic modification, but it's not the same as what they do in labs these days. Uh, there is a difference. Uh, I don't have to worry about these being modified to produce their own insecticides like some corn and soybean seeds have been done these days. The only other thing I ordered, and this I ordered, I've grown gourds before because I've made gourd masks and birdhouses and rattles, a lot of different things out of gourds. And so I've grown some. And one of the things I found over the past couple of years is, you know, I remember with my grandfather picking corn in these really tall baskets. Uh, we would fill these baskets up, and I'm talking like the peck size baskets and bushel baskets and pecks, and the old time baskets that farmers would use when they're harvesting their crops. And it's just my desire to do things the old fashioned way when possible, when it doesn't cause undue strain or difficulty. So I got me a basket for harvesting my crops in the garden. I got that last year. You guys saw it in some of my videos. But believe it or not, those are actually getting hard to find around here. And I got to thinking, you know what? If it ever comes down to the fact that we have to rely heavily on our gardens to survive, we're going to need baskets and whatnot to collect our vegetables and our fruits and whatever in and transport them to our little farmers markets or to our house or wherever we need to take them. And I don't know about you, but I don't know how to make those type of baskets. I'm sure it's probably not that difficult, but there is some skill involved in it. So what I got to thinking about is, well, they have these gourds, bushel gourds from Africa. These things get huge. I mean, they're the size of a bushel basket. It wouldn't be nothing to grow a few of those, cut the top off, clean them out really good. I've done that many, many times. Put handles on that thing, and you've got yourself your own little garden basket. It might even be something that if I ever produce enough out of my garden to take to a farmer's market, I might be able to sell a few of those. So again, I'm always thinking of ways of making a little extra money on the side, selling seeds, selling excess produce at the farmer's market, selling bushel gourd baskets at the farmer's market. I'm always looking out for ways of trying to make a little extra money. And with the economy going the way it is, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's good to be always on the lookout for something like that because you never know when that extra little bit of money might make the difference. There's a variety of tomato, for example, that was grown. One man grew it during the Great Depression, and he was selling the tomatoes on the side of the road to help pay his mortgage through the Great Depression. And he was actually able to produce enough tomatoes and sell them through the Depression that he was able to pay off the mortgage on his house. And ever since then, that particular variety of tomato has been known as a mortgage lifter tomato. So, little things like that. It might not seem like much to some people, but it can, you never know, something little like that could make a big difference. Uh, Basket making back in the 20s, 30s, people still knew how to make baskets. There are still people that know how to make baskets. Uh, Not as many though. It's a very less well known skill now. Uh, Although there are some that still do it, it's not particularly hard to learn, I wouldn't think. And we always have the modern conveniences of pots and 5-gallon buckets and what have you. But I don't know. I like the idea of being able to grow something to produce my own baskets. So I don't have to go buy plastic buckets, or I don't have to go spend $20 on a old-fashioned bushel basket to harvest my vegetables in. It's just my it's just the way I'm thinking right now. If things get as bad as what some people predict, you never know. Things like that might come in handy. Anyway, I hope you found this helpful. That's all I've got for right now. I just wanted to go over some of these seeds that I just got these in, give you an explanation of what I got, why I was thinking like I was. I'm obviously not going to be able to plant all the corn at one time, but I can alternate. And that will, if I have bad luck with one crop one year, the next year with a different variety, I might have a much better crop. So there's a lot of advantages to growing a diverse garden and having a diverse selection of seeds to choose from. I hope you found this useful. I appreciate you guys watching. Like, share, subscribe if you haven't. Uh, keep prepping, stay safe, take care of yourselves and your family. And until next time, folks, I'll catch you later.